They hold each other's lives completely without worth. Do you really think they would accept us with open arms?
No.
And this is not the worst of it. We must make Goliath see the truth. Humanity will never trust or accept us.
But not all humans are like that. Elisa is our friend.
Perhaps the policewoman is the exception that proves the rule. But can she keep you safe from the rest of humanity? Only we can protect each other, Brooklyn. We must be united and strong, and willing to deal with the humans as they would deal with us. Goliath thinks we can hide in their midst like mice and hope for their understanding. This is not possible. Remember what happened to Goliath and Lexington? They were hunted like animals because Lexington trusted the pack.
How did you know?
If you think I'm wrong, then show yourself to them. Very wise, my young friend. They would shoot you down like a dog.
Let's say you're right. What can we do? Goliath still believes humanity will accept us eventually.
Goliath must be made to see the truth for the good of us all. There is a way, Brooklyn. The Grimorum Arcanorum. Bring it to me. There is a spell of truth in its pages. With it, I can open Goliath's eyes. Once Goliath understands, the rest will follow him.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and joining me today is a returning guest to discuss a I guess you call it a neoclassic or classic animated series, Gargoyles, and the guest today is Ashley Thomas. Ashley, how you doing today?
Hey, great, Perry. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. But before we get started, it's been a minute since we had you on the show, so why don't you remind people about who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff.
Sure. So I am a freelance writer and podcaster. I host 4 podcasts, or am a co-host on 4 podcasts, I should say. It is not a solo operation by any means. Those are We Are Starfleet, which is all about Star Trek Strange New Worlds and other Star Trek related topics. Podcast 616, all about Marvel. And then I'm also now a co-host on Mission Log Genealogy, which is all about Gene Roddenberry's pre-Star Trek TV writing. And I'm one of 3 round-robin co-hosts on Video Store Podcast, which you can check out at videostorepodcast.com. A show with varying topics based on movies. You get like movie recommendations kind of in the style like what you would get in a video store. So lots of fun stuff. I realized anyway.
Yeah, and I've been a guest on one of your shows. I've been on Podcast 616 before, which is a lot of fun. It's a great show. And of course, we've had your co-host Hugh on here as well once before too.
Yeah.
So one of the things we like to talk about is what kind of stuff is grabbing your interest lately. It doesn't have to necessarily be for any of your podcasts, just kind of stuff for fun.
Well, I'm kind of at a point right now where if I'm not writing or podcasting about it, I haven't really had time to read or watch it or listen to it or whatever. In something I'm not writing or podcasting about right now, my favorite band is the band Haim. I don't know if you are familiar with them. 3 sisters out of California. They're a rock band, nominated for a couple of Grammys. But they just released a new album towards the end of June called I Quit. And it's their 4th studio album. Really neat, like genre bending kind of stuff, which is part of the reason I love them. Besides, they're super intense on stage. I got tickets to go see them in September in Nashville. I'm so excited about that. It's my first time getting to see them live. And there went some thunder, so good luck. Hopefully that won't.
No, I didn't hear anything on my end, so I think we're okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, hopefully it won't knock out the power or anything. But yeah, really geeking out about their new record. It's kind of like got a 90s garage rock kind of feel to it in a lot of places. It also, like, it has like at least one 90s R&B type song. It's also got like let's do some 70s disco pop. And also, why don't we throw a couple of country songs on here too? And I'm like, what is this? And I love it. I love it. I think their music is super interesting for all of those reasons. So anyway, really geeking out hard about the new album.
That sounds really interesting. What was the name of that band again?
Haim, Haim.
Haim.
People read it like Haim, like Corey Haim, but it's pronounced Haim.
I'm gonna have to look that up on Spotify.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think you might enjoy their music just because they don't really tie themselves down to one genre, which I think is confusing to a lot of people, and that just endears them to me. Mm-hmm. So digging their new record. In terms of comics right now. Is this going to be something that we'll touch on later? But the current Gargoyles run that's coming from Dynamite right now is fantastic. It's written by Greg Weisman, who's the creator of Gargoyles. So I've really enjoyed that. I found that collecting comics and reading comics are two different hobbies. I am currently in more of the collecting mode right now. I haven't had a ton of time for reading, but from what I have read of that particular series has been phenomenal. And there's been a few other spin-off series of that as well. Really enjoying all of that very, very much. In terms of other stuff, always geeking out about Star Trek. Strange New Worlds is set to premiere in about a week and a half. So really looking forward to that as well. Season 3. It's been, 3 years since we had season 2, but that got delayed because of the strikes and things like that. So I'm just excited to finally get season 3. So looking forward to that. It's definitely the crown jewels of the new Star Trek series in terms of how it's been received by the fans, and I love it. I love it. They've got a great cast, great writing staff on that. So, those are the main things I'm geeking out about right now, Perry. How about you?
So for me, well, first I want to piggyback on some stuff you'd said there especially when you're talking about the difference between collecting comics and reading comics.
Sure.
I'm far out of the collecting stage now because I just don't have the physical space for it. Plus, being in Japan, the shipping costs alone would be astronomical.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm all digital stuff. Pretty much only through like Marvel Unlimited, because Amazon is a garbage company and they destroyed Comixology. So, but there is the guys who created Comixology, they sold it to Amazon, and they kind of realized, oh crap, that wasn't good. So now they're working on a new one called, I can't remember, it's like Neon or something or something like that is what it's called. So they're working on a new app. It hasn't launched yet. They just have like a wait list and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to that coming out, because basically I've mostly just been doing Marvel Unlimited these days, because I would do DC, but they don't open up the app in Japan, despite all my emails to them begging them to do it. And they just keep saying, oh, we're working on it. So, there's also the Global Comics app too, which is basically, they've got some DC stuff on there, but it's mainly focused towards indies. They got lots of like Dynamite, Image, IDW. I think IDW is like same day release on the app as they are on its publication, and IDW, and that's a subscription package. So I think they actually lowered their subscription price recently. So I'm going to check that out. You mentioned, though, that the Gargoyles comic, that Dynamite is publishing that, which makes me a little bit nervous. Have you heard the news about Dynamite?
No. What happened?
They're in bankruptcy proceedings or something like that, I believe.
No.
Because, yeah. And it has to do with the Diamond Comics distributors. They're like the... Right. And they're for anyone who doesn't know, like Diamond Comics distributors was like the major distributor. Like they've had like a monopoly on the comic book distribution for decades at this point. Sure. And really, in my opinion, always was a bad idea. And now we're kind of seeing, chickens coming home to roost, I think, with that. But Dynamite has recently had some financial problems because of that, because of Diamond closing up shop. And then and I think even IDW as well is having some issues with it, too. So it's a big blow to the industry. So
I haven't gotten to go to my comic shop in about a month or so, and that was, since then that was when all the stuff blew up with Diamond. Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I'm not reading any Marvel books right now because the She-Hulk series I was reading ended not too long ago. But everything else I'm reading is from Dynamite and IDW, so I'm like, no. The Star Trek comics that are IDW is putting out right now are fantastic. They've been putting out books on for every series, and I've really enjoyed everything. I'm looking forward to catching up on those, but that is stressful.
Yeah.
That is really unfortunate.
Yeah, the latest news, we're recording this on July 15th. The latest news I'm seeing here is that Dynamite had a recent motion in court to expedite a hearing because they're apparently owed like $500,000 by Diamond. And their motion to expedite the hearing was, turns out they're actually owed more than $1 million and they won't be able to make payroll. And this is like 2 weeks ago. So they said they won't be able to make payroll next week. So, and they are moving to a new distributor, but I don't know. We'll see how things go. Like, I hope they're able to get things to work. I mean, just because, there's a lot of good people putting out stuff through there. But even if they don't, like, at least, I guess silver lining is that it's just a license, so Disney still owns it. So Disney could always, start publishing them through Marvel instead, which I don't know why they're not doing already, but.
Yeah, I read something about that, and I can't remember what the ultimate reasoning was. It was a bit confusing to me as well. Disney did put out, Marvel did put out a Gargoyles comic in the 90s. I have collected that entire run. It's only 11 issues. It wasn't like it was a big thing or anything, but it is obscure enough where it was not totally easy to find. But that was I was a little surprised when I saw Dynamite was putting them out instead of Marvel. So
yeah, it's this weird intercompany dynamic things or something like that. Like they've been doing this for a while. Like because even Star Wars, like I think it might have been I think Star Wars, it might have been because the license was still with. The license agreement was still in place with Dark Horse, I think, at the time, or it might have been IDW, one of the two. But then, and now they're publishing them all through Marvel because they turn up on the Marvel app. But maybe that's the case with the Disney stuff. I'm not sure. But I remember even after they purchased Marvel, I think they announced that they were going to be publishing Disney comics through, I think it was IDW at first, actually, if I'm not mistaken. So it's strange. I'm not sure how these decisions are made, but. That's why I'm not, an overpaid CEO. So,
well, Gargoyles comics adjacent, Dynamite. A few, 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half ago, they did a Kickstarter for bound copies of the Marvel and slave labor graphics run of Gargoyles comics. They apparently got the rights to do all those. So I still have all the Marvel run. I have everything of the slave labor graphics run except for the graphic novel that finished that series. Basically, that is very small print run, very difficult to find. The last time I went to look for it online, it was like almost as much as my mortgage.
Oh, wow.
And it was for a copy in really bad shape. I'm like, and we will not be doing that, but I'm glad to know it at least exists somewhere. And also there was a spin-off series for that called Gargoyles Bad Guys. It was all about all the villains later in the series, which is pretty fun. I've got most of the print run of that, but I'm missing a couple of issues. But anyway, they did nice graphic novel versions of that. You could get them just regular paper bound, or you could get like a nice hardbound copy. I cannot remember which I kickstarted at this point, but I've been waiting entirely too long for that. But it's looking like it's going to the printer now. it should be over and done with, but yeah, they I mean, unfortunately, they were not real forthcoming with any updates, and I had all but forgotten that I had done it until I got emails again. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I did send them a lot of money for that like 2 years ago. I would like to have those, please and thank you. That was my birthday present to myself 2 years ago. I just turned 40 a week ago, so I'm like, happy 38th, 39th, and 40th birthday to me. Good grief.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Yeah. But in terms of what I'm interested in lately, just like you, like so much stuff I'm consuming these days is either for podcasts or for media classes I teach. So it's tough to find time to watch anything for fun or just because I want to watch it for fun. But I did get to see the new Superman movie on Friday night.
I've not gotten to see it yet. I keep hearing wonderful things.
So good. So
Yay.
good. Oh,
that
so
makes
good.
me
That
makes me really happy. Good for James Gunn.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously I got a little bit of quibbles here and there with it. I was actually just on one of your fellow podcasters. I was on the Real Talk podcast yesterday talking about it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I really dug it. There are some quibbles I have, but they're very minor. But yeah, it was such a fun movie, and David Cornsweet did an excellent job. Rachel Brosnahan, I mean, just Edie Gathegi, as Mr. Terrific. Oh, stole the show. Absolutely incredible. Crypto,
love it.
I have never been a fan of Crypto, but man, I would take a kryptonite bullet for that dog now. He was amazing.
The super dog. I just know the song. That's exciting. Very good. I'm glad to hear that folks are getting out there enjoying it. I don't know any of those actors except for Rachel Brosnahan because I just finished Marvelous Mrs. Maisel last year.
Everyone was so psyched about her as Lois Lane because of that, and I had never seen it, so I'm just like, I'm going in completely blind. I have no frame of reference for this actress, so I was just completely blown away. Edie Gathegi,
she's delightful.
Yeah, she was amazing. But Edie Gathegi, who plays Mr. Terrific, he was also Darwin in X-Men First Class, so that might be where you know him from.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. I know nothing about that character.
Yeah, the most interesting member of the cast of that movie, and they killed him off unceremoniously for no reason, and it was. And once that happened in First Class, I kind of checked out of that movie.
I was like, no spoilers, bro. Okay, yeah, First class. That's right.
No,
okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, spoilers for a movie that's over 10 years old.
No, it's fine. I thought you were talking about Superman. I was like,
no,
don't tell me that. No.
Yeah. For anyone who hasn't seen First Class, I mean, they go the route. They have two black characters on that team. They kill one, and the other one turns into a traitor. So, nice job, X-Men. Nice job, Fox. But anyway, so as I mentioned today, we are talking about Gargoyles. We're talking about the first season here, 1994 animated series on the Disney, premiered on the Disney Afternoon, I believe, right?
Yes, it did.
So I missed the boat on this when it came out. I think at this point in my life, I was kind of checked out of all things Disney. I think I just gotten past that age. And actually, I was kind of surprised when I saw that it came out in 94 because I thought it had come out much later than that. I thought it had come out in 96 or 97. So, but I completely missed the boat on it. So I didn't see it. I was clued into some of the earlier Disney Afternoon stuff. I love Tailspin, DuckTales,
sure.
Of course, Darkwing Duck. And I think once Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, those were the four that I was watching a lot back then. But as they started to shift them around and those other ones were ended and they started to get new stuff. I think Goof Troop was the last thing that I was kind of watching a little bit, and then I stopped around that point. And I think Gargoyles may have come right after that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. So I watched all of those things. Also, every time you named off one of those shows, I'm like, theme song, banger. Theme song, banger. All 5 shows you just listed, straight bangers the whole way. It's great. So I was keyed into Gargoyles long before it premiered. They did, and I'm curious to see if any of this still exists somewhere online, but I remember watching a ton of promo material. They would, I don't know if it was little interstitials or if they ran a special, hey, we're doing something new, and interesting. Here's like some behind the scenes stuff. And so I remember watching promos with where Jonathan Frakes led the promo, like he was kind of like narrating like what they were doing, whatever. They had Sally Richardson Whitfield on there interviewing her about playing Elisa. They had Keith David, like, and then Greg Weisman also was the creator, was in on these too. And I remember watching these interviews, and I would have been 9 at the time. And my biggest takeaway from all of these things was, one, at this point in my life, I had never watched any Star Trek. But I was like, Frakes, 9-year-old me was like, hot. Good, like, oh, why is he the villain? That's bad. But also, I was fascinated that they drew him and Sally Richardson Whitfield's character, Elisa, to look like their voice actors. And I don't know about you, Perry, but one of my all-time favorite movies is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And yes. I have had a lifelong desire to either, one, be in a cartoon or interact with cartoon characters. And so this idea that they would draw the cartoon character in the likeness of their voice actor, like, floored me. I thought that was the coolest thing in the entire world. I'm like, this is it. I got to be a voice actor so I too can become a cartoon character. And so I was like all in on this, and plus it was darker. Like, I was a big fan of Batman the Animated Series, so this is in that same dark vein. Also has a lot of voice actor crossover in with these, by the way, which is another neat thing. But I was keyed in before the premiere. Like, I was ready to watch this. This looked super cool to me. I liked that it was a little bit edgy. I loved that there was a girl character in an action cartoon, which at that point there weren't, period. Like, if there was a girl character, she was the side character. She wasn't like the star of the show. And the fact that this was like an ensemble show, and you have, like, I have had like a massive girl crush on Sally Richardson Whitfield since I was 9 years old. Like, I was like, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She is a cop. She drives a cool car, and she gets to hang out with gargoyles. I'm going to do this when I'm a grown up. Like, I wanted to be a police detective. I always wanted to be a detective when I was a little kid. I was obsessed with The Great Mouse Detective. I thought that was like, I mean, I still think that's an undersung Disney classic, but I really wanted to be a detective. And then I'm watching the show, and I'm like, oh man, I want to be Elisa Maza when I grow up, because I might get to, hang out with gargoyles. Wouldn't that be really cool? This is all what's going on in my 9-year-old brain. So I watched the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's edgy. It's like an interesting story. It's so different from everything else that is on TV directed at kids at this point. I was all in. I'm going to stop right there and let you speak.
No,
Take a breath.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Although, the one minor correction, because we did have the X-Men animated series, so we did have a lot of the female members in that too.
That's true. That's true. But I was not as interested in them, except for Rogue. I thought Rogue was the best. But that, again, that's an ensemble. I felt like Elisa was much more of like a lead character. Like, this was a show that was as much about her as it was about the gargoyles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she definitely wasn't, because going into it, you can kind of see some similarities between this and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just like on the very surface level, right? You got this group of otherworldly type characters, and then you have their human female friend, and so you could easily see it going in it just looking at it from that surface level, like you're just looking at, like, wallpaper images or something like that. You could easily assume that she's just going to be like I don't know, have you ever seen the Turtles Forever movie where the 2003 Turtles crossed over with the 1987 Turtles?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, so it was funny because it's all this interdimensional stuff, and they cross over and they go into the 1987 Turtles world, and and April is being like attacked by some like mutant pizza characters, and the 87 Turtles like, oh, it's time to go save April. We have to save April at least like once a day.
Yeah,
And
yeah, right.
And you don't have that with Elisa in this. Also,
Right.
I gotta say, I love the name. One of my the main character in my Myth Hunter series of novels is also named Elisa, so I was really
Yeah.
tickled to see that in there. So yeah, it was really that part was really cool. Like, and especially for the time, you're right. It was, X-Men aside, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff where you had strong female characters in a show that is mostly directed at boys, which this one clearly is, or clearly was, I should say. And so that part was interesting. Like I said, looking at it as I'm watching it last night, I'm trying to approach this with the mindset of, I'm trying to put myself back in that 1994 mindset and trying to look at it from that perspective. Because now, as a man who's in his 40s, it doesn't appeal to me as much. So, but I'm trying to look back and trying to imagine what I would have felt if I had seen this back when I think I was 11 when this came out. And there's definitely stuff I really admire about it. Like, I think there's one of my favorite episodes was actually Temptation, the one where Brooklyn Demona is trying to woo Brooklyn over to her side, and also Deadly Force when Broadway when Broadway accidentally shoots Elisa with her own gun. Those are both very strong episodes. And I think I enjoyed them probably the most out of the whole watch. I felt like the Awakening stuff kind of dragged on a little bit too long, and but I got to give them credit too. I mean, a 5-part. I mean, this first season is only 13 episodes, and 5 of those 13 episodes are just devoted to the opening story, and that's unusual for this time period because this was 1994. I mean, I guess maybe X-Men had done the Phoenix Saga around this point. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And that was 5 parts. Yeah.
And that was 5 parts. Yeah. But to start off a show like that is it's pretty bold because you didn't see that a lot back then. The most you got was like X-Men Night of the Sentinels, where it was a 2-part season premiere, series premiere, but having a 5-part series premiere. And you mentioned Batman the Animated Series, which was mostly self-contained. It wasn't very serialized. It was pretty much all self-contained episodes, which is why if you go on, there's so many different viewing orders for Batman the Animated Series because of all the DVD releases, but those episodes were pretty much all standalone. But this one's not. It is very much serialized. Like when we get into the later episodes, there's a little bit more standalone type aspects to it, but there's still a serialization aspect. There's still elements that are carrying over.
Right. I just now went to IMDb because I was trying to remember how they released it and what they did. And I think this is why you had so much hype leading up to the series was that they did a week-long event with that 5-part opener. And then after that, new episodes aired on Fridays. So you had like this foundation for who these characters are, and you could get a good feel for them. And then you're like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to come back every Friday and watch this show. And I did. I watched the majority of the series in its original airing. I won't say I caught every single episode the day it aired, but I did catch a lot of it. And then in the early 2000s, Toon Disney, which is then became Disney XD, which now I don't even think exists anymore.
I don't think so.
Toon Disney aired Gargoyles at 10 o'clock every night, or every weeknight at least. And I happened to catch it in reruns when I was in high school. And I'm like, oh yeah, I liked this show back in the day. And I watched it. I'm, 16 years old and I'm watching this. And I remembered really enjoying it as a kid. And then I'm watching it again as a teenager. And I'm enjoying it just as much as I did as a kid because the stories were interesting. I thought the characters were great. But the more I think about it, and I have tweeted this, when I was still on Twitter, but I sent this out to Greg Weisman one day, and I said, Gargoyles is at least 50% of the reason I have 2 English degrees. And he replied and said, that is the best thing anybody could ever tell me about any of my work. And I'm like, thank you, bro. I appreciate you. But this is my introduction to Shakespeare. This was my introduction to, if you decide, Perry, you want to go on and watch seasons 2 and 3, this is how I learned growing up in a teeny tiny small town in East Tennessee, where it took 3 to 5 business years for culture to reach us prior to the internet. This was how I learned about other cultures. Like, I learned world mythology from Gargoyles. I learned about, myth from other parts of the world, like Africa, Ireland, England, and even like indigenous lore. Because one of the things I think is so cool about this show is you have such a diverse like cast. Like your lead, Goliath, is voiced by a black man. I've also had a crush on Keith David's voice since I was 9 years old. I'm just like, oh my gosh, please talk to me all day. And everybody like knows him now for more villainous roles, but for me, he's always Goliath. And I'm like, why are you scared of this man? he's big and like strong and manly and like, but kind and gentle. And I love him so much because of this role. But then you also your lead girl in the show is Afro-Cherokee, which, by the way, is also Sally Richardson's heritage. She is Afro-Cherokee, I believe, on her mother's side. And so I just thought that it never occurred to me that, this is a cool, diverse show, because this is not a thing that we really talked about in the 90s. But now, like, if you did this, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so woke.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, yeah.
Yeah. But back then, this is just what we did. Nobody batted an eye about it.
Yeah, it'll be fun when the X-Men movies come out and all the right-wing YouTube asshats come out with they've made the X-Men woke now. It's like they've always been woke, you dumb piece of shit.
like please learn history. Stop it.
But I want to talk about Greg Weisman for a minute. Well, actually, before we do that, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back, because I want to talk a little bit about Greg Weisman, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the show. Ever have a situation where you want to watch something on Netflix, but it's only available in another country? Or are you nervous about using public Wi-Fi networks without any protection? Then what you need is a VPN, or virtual private network. A VPN is essentially your own superhero mask that protects your device's secret identity from prying eyes. In these uncertain times, protecting yourself on the internet is more important than ever to prevent your data from being sold to the highest bidder. But free VPNs don't offer the security they promise, so a subscription VPN is best. I've been a loyal user of ExpressVPN for years. It's got fast speed, great support, and is very easy to use. Just install ExpressVPN on your device or Wi-Fi router, click a button, and you've got instant protection. You can also select which country you want to browse from, which gets around geo-blocking on streaming services like Netflix and Disney+. If you'd like to try out ExpressVPN, you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the show notes. So what are you waiting for? Start protecting yourself today. Since you're listening to this show, I already know you love watching superhero movies and TV shows, and you just might enjoy superhero comics. But how about superhero novels? I'm giving away 2 free superhero novels and 1 free superhero short story. Visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP to get access to Vanguard, Heroes Forged, the first novel in my own Avengers and X-Men inspired superhero novel series, and Ronin Born, my cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic Japan. I'm also throwing in Fire and Lightning, a free prequel story to my new Power Rangers-inspired superhero series, Omega Knights. So visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP, those are just the letters SCP, to get started, or click on the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show. And we are back. So I want to talk a little bit about Greg Weisman, because I've only recently, gotten known of his name, in like the past decade or so. First with Spectacular Spider-Man, which I maintain, you can have Spider-Man 94 fans, keep it, right? But Spectacular Spider-Man all day long, hands down, the best version of Spider-Man we've ever gotten in animation. Aside from
it's
maybe Into the
fantastic.
Spider-Verse.
I'd say, yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man is fantastic. I have never finished the series, but I loved it. Like what I saw of it. I was watching it when Netflix still sent DVDs out. And so this was, 15 years ago. I watched, that was how I watched it back in the day. So I've never completed the whole series.
Oh, it's so good. Banger
I
theme
loved
song
every
too.
second of it.
You're talking about the Disney afternoon theme. My God, that Spectacular theme song is amazing.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. Whenever my daughter is freaking out, like whenever she's like throwing a tantrum, pretty much the only thing that will calm her down is if I play the Spectacular Spider-Man theme on YouTube. And then she just gets very quiet and then she starts watching it.
Hey, whatever works. There are worse pacifiers.
Yeah. But yeah. Banger show, banger theme song. Love that show. But looking at the other stuff he did, like he did Young Justice too, which also amazing series. And I was not expecting to like it as much as I did when they first started advertising it. And it's like, because I was a fan of the Young Justice comic book that Peter David did in the late 90s, early 2000s. So when they said they're going to do a Young Justice TV show, my first thought was like, oh, great. We're going to get, Tim Drake Robin. We're going to get Impulse. We're going to get Connor Kent Superboy. And then we get it. And it's like, oh, wait, this is just Teen Titans. Like, I'm not as interested in Teen Titans. Like, I prefer when you say Young Justice, I got certain. And especially when they announced, they said they're going to be like the Justice League's like covert team. Like, but that doesn't seem to. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be any good. And then I watched it. I'm like, oh my God, no! I completely eat my words. This show is amazing.
Yeah, I haven't actually gotten to watch that yet. That's been on my radar for some time, and it's only because I don't really know a lot of those characters, or I know only passing things about them. But Greg Weisman's in the pilot seat. Heck yeah, I'm there. Let's go.
The first season especially is amazing. The second season, the cast gets a little bit big, and then when they get into the third season, I think it was from the third season that it was after they had brought it back. And not as strong in the third season and beyond. In fact, I haven't finished it all the way through, but the first season especially, it's really tight. It's really good, really well written. And even if you don't know those characters, like they do a really good job of introducing them for you and giving like the context you need. And even though it is focused on the Young Justice cast, they do some pretty good stuff with the Justice League characters too, who only appear. They're mostly in supporting parts. They have some really strong moments in there too. Like one of my favorites is there's this one scene when the Justice League is debating about, having the teen sidekicks and all that, and how much did they allow them to do and all this. And Wonder Woman takes Batman to task for, making a kid Robin. Dick Grayson, and then Batman just says to her, he's like, no, Robin had to find his parents' killer. And then Wonder Woman's like, why? So he could be like you? And Batman's like, no, so he wouldn't be like me. And it was like, perfect Batman moment right there. Yeah.
All right.
But also like other stuff he's done, like he did. He was a writer on the Men in Black series, which. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which
that wasn't one I watched consistently, but yeah.
I didn't watch it consistently, but every time I caught it, it was really good. He did I never watched this one, but he did the Hercules series as well.
Hercules the animated series or
okay. The animated series, yeah. No, not the Kevin Sorbo one. And that's probably the first and last time we'll mention Kevin Sorbo on this show. But also, Ashley, did you know that there was a Mummy animated series based on the movies with Brendan Fraser?
I did know and had forgotten until you just said that. So yes, I did, but I didn't know he worked on it.
And he worked on it. Yeah. My mind is blown because I never knew this series existed. And now I've got to, I gotta fire up the old browsing, questionable sources thing to see if I can find this, because I love those films with Brendan Fraser, and now seeing that Greg Weisman was involved in the animated series, I've got to check this out. There was also a Starship Troopers one too called Roughnecks.
Okay, yep, I remember that too. There was a longer than you would think period of time in my life where I only watched animated things. So there was a time in the late 90s where we were getting a lot of movie spinoffs into cartoons. And so the 96 Godzilla or 97 Godzilla movie
Godzilla the series,
got a TV spinoff. I knew Men in Black. I'd forgotten about the Mummy series until you mentioned it. What was the other one you just mentioned?
There was a Starship Troopers one too.
Yeah, I knew about that too and totally forgot it existed. These weren't ever shows I ever watched, but I would catch commercials for them.
I wonder about how that turned out because, the Starship Troopers movie is brilliant, but it's also, I'm curious how they translate the anti-fascist stuff and all that into animation. So I have to take a look at
probably
that.
Pew, pew, pew.
Probably mostly just the pew, pew stuff. But also he was a writer on The Batman, the 2004 animated series, which I think most people forget about, but actually had some pretty solid, it was unfavorable when it came out. It was, in my opinion, unfavorably compared to Batman the Animated Series, but it had some pretty interesting stuff in it. I really liked the art style they used. Jeff Matsuda did the design on that. He was also a writer on Batman the Brave and the Bold, and Star Wars Rebels, Beware the Batman. He had written at least one episode of that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think this is the 2012 one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. 2012 one. He was involved in, he was only one episode he wrote in the 2015 season. But also he's done some comic book work too. You mentioned the Gargoyles comics, but he's also done recently the Spectacular Spider-Men for Marvel, which focuses on both Peter and Miles, which is really cool. I've been reading that through Marvel Unlimited and really enjoying that. And the funny thing is he's brought in some of the characters from the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series into that show, into that comic too. So he's come up with like comic counterparts for characters like Kong and Sally. So it was really interesting to see them. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Greg Weisman's work. So I think one of my issues going into this is I think I had unrealistic expectations because I've been hearing people talk up Gargoyles for at least 20 years. And so I've been seeing online, everyone's like, whenever the topic of 90s shows or something comes up, everyone's like, oh my God, Gargoyles was amazing. And when I found out Greg Weisman was involved, and I'm like, man, this thing's going to be so awesome. And so I think I got my expectations a little bit too high, and I'm trying to bring them back down as I'm watching it. And just remember, it is a 90s show, and it is very groundbreaking for the time, but coming at this from the perspective of a 40-year-old man in 2025, it's probably not going to be what you think it's going to be.
I will say, my friend, you have only watched season 1.
That's true, too. Yes.
Season 1 is great. It lays a lot of groundwork. And, you mentioned the continuity stuff that they do with this series. They continue with that. The bones of story arcs that we will see play out in seasons 2 and 3 are laid here in these first 13 episodes.
And one of the things too, speaking of that, because I saw here, I'm like, first season, 13 episodes. Okay. And then I look at season 2, 52 episodes. Like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Disney loved having those 65 episode runs because that meant that you could show them in the afternoon, 5 days a week. And that was a syndication package.
Same thing with Batman the Animated Series. The first season is 60 some episodes, and season 2 is 12.
Yeah.
Which is a pain in the ass if you're doing media management on Plex.
Right.
But yeah, this first those first 5 episodes, I think one of the issues I had in here was just the Gargoyles themselves, the cast. Goliath is great. Keith David is amazing, does an amazing job voicing him. He's got a lot of personality. He's a very interesting, complex character. Hudson too, I dug a lot. But when we got to the other ones, we have Brooklyn, Broadway, and Lexington. I felt like having 3 characters who are all different variations on kind of the comic relief character was a little bit much. And I felt like that was more of a Disney thing than a Greg Weisman thing, I think. I felt like we could have done better if we had condensed them into maybe just 1 or 2 characters as opposed to 3.
That's not something I'd ever considered, but I've also watched the entire series probably 50 times or more. because this is in my top 5 favorite shows, period. Like, animated or otherwise. Like, this is it was such a groundbreaking and life-altering show for me, and so influential. It came to me at a time where I really needed it. Like, this, for me, like, I would have never considered swapping any of those characters into one guy or 2 characters because I love the trio. And one of the things that's really cool that you'll get to see in the later seasons, if you decide you want to go watch more, is how each of those characters evolve to where they are very distinct. They're not just the comic relief characters. But in the first 5 episodes, yeah, they're absolutely the comic relief characters.
Yeah, I think seeing that there are 52 episodes in season 2 gives me a little bit more hope for them, because that gives you more opportunity to flesh them out. But in the space of 13 episodes, you've got 5 gargoyles, plus you've got Elisa, plus you've got Demona and Xanatos. That's a lot. And these episodes aren't long, right? It's not like we're talking, 45 minutes. They're like 20 minutes a pop. So it's not a lot of real estate to really kind of dive into those 3. They do a little bit. Like I said, Temptation was a great episode. Deadly Force was a great episode. And they do a good job of spotlighting Brooklyn and Broadway in both of those. But yeah, it was hard to kind of get a sense for them. At least in these 13 episodes in this first season, it was hard for me to really get a sense of them as this is why we need these 3 characters, as opposed to just combining them into just one character. Right. But obviously, season 2, we get 52 episodes, so I'm sure that changes as we go forward.
Oh, yeah. You definitely get a lot more. You get more character development all around, but in particular, the journeys each of those characters goes on is particularly fun to watch. Oh.
And also on the voice cast, like, you'd mentioned obviously Sally Richardson, Jonathan Frakes. It was funny. I was watching it and I'm like, I know this guy's voice, but I didn't look it up. And it wasn't until you mentioned Jonathan Frakes. I'm like, oh, Jonathan Frakes introduced that. That's interesting. I wonder why he did that. It's just because it's and then I look up, I'm like, oh wait, no, he was the voice of Xanatos. Dumbass.
Yeah, he's Evil Riker. Yeah, no, it was so, again, absolutely fascinating to me. Like, oh, that guy's cute. 9-year-old me, like, already like, love a man with a beard. Here we go. He's like, oh, he's the villain. And I think I might have been aware that he was in Star Trek, maybe, but, I did not watch Star Trek until I was an adult. So I had the complete opposite experience. Most people watching or watching Star Trek for the first time, because I start TNG and I'm like, why is Demona a caring counselor? Also, ooh, there's Xanatos, but no ponytail. Like, what is this? What is this? And then, something that happened completely by accident was that half the cast of Gargoyles was either a Star Trek regular or a recurring guest in Star Trek. Of course, you've got Frakes and Sirtis in our main cast for Gargoyles, but Avery Brooks shows up, Brent Spiner shows up, Cole Meany is in an episode, Nichelle Nichols plays Elisa's mom. You get her in the first season, So you've got folks all the way from TOS to Voyager showing up in Gargoyles, and then folks who would later go on to be
Michael Dorn too.
Michael Dorn is Coldstone, who we see at the end of this season. So, he's recurring character. Even Sally Richardson Whitfield was in one episode of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, wow.
Kate Mulgrew, who's Captain Janeway, she plays a recurring character. She's in 6 episodes of Gargoyles. And I was, or maybe 10. But I was several episodes into Star Trek Voyager in my first watch of it, and I could not, for the life of me, figure out, why do I know this woman's voice? And then when I figured out, oh my goodness, she's she's this character in Gargoyles who you've not met yet. So I like literally about fell out of my seat. I'm like, oh my gosh! So I'm having a meltdown watching this. Garrett Graham, who cult film fans would know him as Beef in Phantom of Paradise. But he was also he did a lot of sci-fi in the 90s. He was in an episode or two of Babylon 5. He showed up in Star Trek Voyager as well. He is a recurring character in season 2 and 3 of Gargoyles. So
he's also the voice of Frank Sherman on The Critic.
Oh, yes, there you go. There's so much crossover. The Venn diagram of Gargoyles actors and Star Trek actors is almost a circle. Mm-hmm. There was so much crossover that I feel like I was primed from a very early age to love Star Trek because of this show. So anyway, I could talk about that for a while.
Yeah, but also other names, not necessarily related to Star Trek, but you got Diedrich Bader in this. James Belushi, Xander Berkeley, Clancy Brown. I picked out his name right away. I'm like, oh, that's Clancy Brown right there, obviously.
Well, Clancy Brown shows up in Enterprise, which of course had not premiered in when Gargoyles was on the air, but eventually he would show up in Star Trek.
But also Tim Curry, Matt Frewer,
yes.
CCH Pounder.
Oh my gosh,
John Rhys Davies, Roger Rees, Rachel Tickerton, who I know most people probably know her as probably from me, like Sally Bishop from Con Air, The Guard. There's another one I saw. Thomas F. Wilson, Biff, who plays Matt Bluestone from Back to the Future.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, as many times as I have watched this series, I never once made the connection that he's Biff. Good grief.
And looks like Patrick Stewart was actually considered for a role too. But,
he was actually considered for Goliath. Mm-hmm. But they could not meet his price tag. I as much as I love Pat Stew, no, you can't have anybody but Keith David in this role.
Yeah. But also, like Greg Weisman, he says that at first that the Star Trek connection was just complete coincidence, but because Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes, because they were such prominent roles, they kept talking it up to other Star Trek actors, and so they started. They kept encouraging other Star Trek actors to join in. So that ended up being why there were so many Star Trek actors as well.
I love it.
Yeah. So, very interesting connection there. LeVar Burton, too. It looks like he appeared in an episode here as well.
He's a Nazi.
Tony Shalhoub, too.
Yep.
Wait. They cast LeVar Burton as a Nazi?
No. A Nazi.
Oh, a Nazi. I thought you said the I'm like, no. Well, okay.
No. That is very different.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, but amazing voice cast on this. Really, and I thought for my mileage, I thought that the ones that really stood out in this were Keith David, Richardson, and Frakes. They stood out. Also Ed Asner as Hudson. Those ones stood out the most.
Yeah.
Also, but I got to talk about the 9th episode, Enter Macbeth. Is it just me, or what was up with the animation in this episode? Because it seemed very rough compared to the rest of the series.
I don't know that it's something I've ever noticed. So good question. Now I'm going to have to go back and look and then send you a note.
Yeah, because it was very kind of jarring. And at first, I'm just like, wait a minute, was I not paying attention? Because I watched a bunch of these in a row, and then I had a break because I had other stuff to do. And then when I jumped back into it, it just felt very jarring when I got into the Enter Macbeth episode, and it felt very. I don't know why, but it's just something about even the color of Broadway. It seemed much brighter, and just the facial movements, especially Goliath. It just seemed very different and very it reminded me of, do you remember the last season of X-Men 92 when they had outsourced the animation to a different studio? It was completely cheaper animation style. It really reminded me of that, and not in a good way.
Okay. Yeah, that is not something I have ever really noticed in all of my years of watching this show.
I don't know if it was just me or what, because I'm looking on the Gargoyles wiki and on this particular episode, and it doesn't mention anything about it. So I'm not sure what it is about it.
Well, I'm looking at the air dates, and so whether this is a factor or not, I don't know. Deadly Force aired on November 18th, 1994. Enter Macbeth airs on January 6th, 1995. So you have
it's a big gap,
almost a month and a half break. So I don't know if there was some different finishing things that were being done. I do not know anything about the animation production process. I could be completely pulling that out of thin air.
No, that might track, because I think the animation, it was especially jarring in episode 9, but even from episode 10, I noticed it was still not as polished. It was better than episode 9, but it didn't seem as polished as it was in the first 8 episodes. So I do wonder if there was some sort of animation studio switch, or if maybe they were just, there's a production crunch or something happened there.
It's possible. Could we circle back really quick and can we touch on Deadly Force?
Sure.
So Deadly Force, that was one I remembered watching as a kid, and that's like a big gun safety episode. Like, don't play with guns. Like, grown-ups watching this with your kids, if you have guns, keep them put away and out of reach, where no one can touch them, and cause a terrible accident. This episode, when the series reran on Toon Disney, they would never play this episode.
Really?
And so, really. And so when it would go from episode 7, Temptation, and then the next night you go to watch it, and you get, Enter Macbeth, and you get the previously on Gargoyles, you see Elisa getting, Broadway accidentally shooting Elisa, or whatever. I thought that was so interesting that censors would not allow them to play that episode because it was deemed too violent, which I get. But at the same time, it's very much an anti, not, I won't say it's anti-gun, but it is very much like a gun safety. Like, hey, there's a big reason we don't play with guns. Like, somebody could get seriously hurt. And so I remember really, thinking like, oh, crap, this is serious stuff at age 9. It's, a really important episode. And it's definitely one of the top-rated episodes of that season and the series, too.
It is very good, and I gotta say, you can definitely see it is a message based episode. But what I really appreciate is that the message isn't. It's not hammered over your head like a lot of kids shows did with those message episodes, right? So it's not like it wasn't like that. They handled it in a very mature, very delicate way, and also something else. Talking about that, it also made me remember something else I wanted to mention, and that is just so you look at this you're looking at this now in 1994, and this is very groundbreaking in the way that it handled the depiction and the vocabulary around violence, because for a long time, like, Batman the Animated Series was very groundbreaking in that it was probably the first, I think it might have been the first kids animated show that had guns firing real bullets. Everything else, they're always like laser weapons, right?
Right.
But one of the trade-offs for that is, like, you can't show the bullets hitting anybody. They always have to miss. That was kind of like one of the trade-offs with the Batman the Animated Series. So you always see that, like, them firing real guns with real bullets, but the bullets don't hit anything. It's all they're always missing the mark. If someone is hit, like, there's an episode where I think Gordon is shot, but it happens off screen. You don't see him get shot. You see like the gun firing, and then you cut later and you see that Gordon's lying on the ground, but you don't see any blood or anything like that. Also, this one, like that episode with Deadly Force, right? You see Elisa get shot with a real gun, point blank, boom. And there's no covering that up. But also, they're talking about words like, they use words like kill and die in this show, which stood out to me a lot because they did not do that in the 90s. In fact, famously, Spider-Man 94, which came out the same year as this did, They only use laser guns. They never use the word die or kill or anything like that. It was never the robber who killed Uncle Ben. It was always the robber who got Uncle Ben.
Yep.
And even like the Sinister Six. They couldn't call them the Sinister Six. They called to call them the Insidious Six because of that. Because the Sinister was, which is weird because they had Fox on X-Men, also on the same network. They had Mr. Sinister, but so I don't understand why. But for some reason, they couldn't call it Sinister Six. The censors went wild on Spider-Man 94. Like they
really did.
I've been rewatching it with my son, and it's freaking weird. Spider-Man never punches anybody. He's like always throwing people into boxes and shit like that because they couldn't show him punching anybody. And like when he landed on rooftops, they had to make sure that there were no pigeons there. So that it was like these weird notes they would give. Morbius didn't have, he was a vampire, but he couldn't bite people because that was too violent. Right. Instead, he had these mouths on his hands, which I maintain are freaking creepier than a vampire bite. And it's just like these weird little things they had in there. And even when they had the Punisher, like they couldn't even say the Punisher was killing people. And so it's like this weird dance they have to do about how it's like, oh, well, you can't destroy him, right? They're using words like destroy. And but this show, and I don't know what it was. I don't know how. Maybe it's because this was aired on ABC, which I'm not sure if Disney owned ABC at this point in the 90s. They might have, but
maybe. I think so. The network that aired this in my local area was called TNI.
Okay.
And it was. They had a lot of Disney that they had the Disney afternoon block. Now TNI was a separate channel from the ABC station in my local broadcasting area. I am unclear of its origins. I'd have to do a Google on that. But it stood for Tennessee NI, whatever the NI stood for. I think that's what that stood for. I'm not totally positive off the top of my head.
I'm pretty sure in the Chicagoland area where I grew up, I'm pretty sure it was ABC, but I'm not. I'm not 100% confident on that. But I wonder because I'm wondering what the reason was that Disney was able to avoid the censors that Fox had to deal with Spider-Man, and maybe it was because just Disney's such a massive corporation, they can throw a lot of money around, or maybe it was because of ABC or and maybe they had owned them at that point. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but that surprised me. That jumped out to me right in the first episode when they're talking very seriously about like death and and all that kind of stuff. So I was I got to give the show kudos for that, for doing things that, and now it's funny because now you watch like kids animated stuff now. They're a lot less restrictive now than they weren't back then with that kind of stuff, I think.
Yeah.
But back then, it was a huge deal.
Well, and one of the things that I remember, again, being 9 years old watching this, in the very first episode, you see Xanatos on top of Castle Wyvern checking out the gargoyles, and Owen's asking him how he's planning to pull this off. He's like, if you pay a man enough, he'll walk barefoot into hell. I'm like, I'm like, whoa, they just cussed in my kids' cartoon. Wow. My mother must have stepped out of the room at the time because she would have been like, nope, we're turning it off. But I was like, what am I watching? This is very serious, and I love it.
That's a good point, too. I didn't even clock that, but you're right. Back then, hell was considered a curse word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I remember in, comic books, like there's I remember very vividly, there was a cover of an issue of Gambit, and it was like the tagline said, like, watch all heck break loose. And someone asked the writer, Fabian Nicieza, about that. Why'd you say heck instead of hell on the cover? And he's like, well, because that's the Comics Code Authority. They're only like you can use hell, but only like a certain number of hell you could use in each issue. Like, I wanted to save it for the store inside the story. So for the cover, we'd used up our allotment, so we had to use heck instead.
Oh my gosh, people get pearl clutchy about the weirdest stuff.
It's so weird. Yeah. And meanwhile, I was watching Alien 3 at like 9 years old, and I turned out okay. Well, we won't go there.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, it is groundbreaking how I think That's one of the things I had. That's one of the things I had to keep reminding myself, and I had to keep putting myself back in that mindset. Like, remember, this was 1994. This was really serious stuff back then for kids, and so it was interesting to. It was an interesting exercise to try and turn myself back into that mindset.
Yeah, because I was a kid watching this, and I can still remember how deeply this affected me. This might be a longer story for later, but I would be a fundamentally different person had I not watched Gargoyles. And I'll just say that right now. I would not be me had I not watched this show growing up.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Like, what was it about this that got you really interested in things like Shakespeare and literature? Because I remember you mentioning that before. So
yeah. Well, it's not even just that. I mean, the show is so literary. One of the things I've enjoyed, reading up on the series as an adult is knowing like the things that influenced Greg Weisman and the other writers in the writer's room were things like Shakespeare and myth and legend and King Arthur stories and things like that. All of that feeds into the later seasons, especially season 2. Avalon plays like the island of Avalon plays a huge role in season 2. So I won't say more than that because spoilers, and I don't care that this is a 30-plus-year-old show. I ain't gonna spoil it for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. But yeah, go ahead.
No. Finish your thought.
And so because it was my introduction to those things, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then when they would come up in my English classes at school, like I knew about Macbeth because Macbeth was a main character on Gargoyles, and they play with his story. They play with a variation of his story in the series. But I was moderately familiar with what they were doing because of Gargoyles. Whenever I read King Arthur stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I know about this because Gargoyles. When we would read stories like, I remember in particular when I was in elementary and middle school, the stories that we would read in our reading and English classes were a lot of times like world mythology. And so I knew who Anansi was, but it was and so I kind of had the idea of that because I had read it in school, but then getting to see it in a different light in a Gargoyles episode in season 2, I'm like, oh, wow, that's really neat. Okay. And there are multiple stories like that. And so it broadened my horizon because I was living in a tiny town, that was very culturally homogenous. And so everybody looked, think, acted, thought, voted like my parents. This was me learning that there were people in other parts of the planet that were different from me. And that was cool. So for me, this was how I learned about the outside world. Because before the internet, it took 3 to 5 years for cultural pop cultural stuff to reach my town. 3 to 5 business years.
Yeah, for me it was X-Men that was that, like, and I grew up in a much more culturally diverse area, but still it was a suburban area. It was still fairly white. Like there was it wasn't all white, but it was still mostly white, and then you had other degrees of other minorities. And even still, like most of the people, my parents' social circle was all people that looked like them, right? It was all like middle class suburban white people. It was not I didn't really have a lot of interaction outside of like a few students here and there who were from different, ethnic backgrounds and stuff. So for me, it was X-Men that really kind of broadened those horizons. And I'm like, I always say like X-Men gave me my politics because I came from a middle class white suburban family that idolized Reagan, and and my grandfather thought apartheid South Africa was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah, exactly. Look on your face. You can't see it, but
Ooh,
yeah.
Know that my look was horrified.
Yeah. And so when when I was getting older and, starting to hear people talk about politics, and for me, it was gay rights was really kind of like the thing that kind of like clued me in, because when I'd hear people talking about like, gays in the military or all that same sex, and hearing like my parents and my grandparents talk about it, I'm just like, wait a minute, they're just people. Why should it matter? And I got that from X-Men, right? I became a progressive because of X-Men, because I definitely didn't get it from my family. And it sounds like you went through something similar, at least gave you a greater cultural understanding. I think that one of the great things that I think is people underestimate about, because I mean, you probably heard this growing up too. I know I certainly did, about how like, TV, too much animation, or cartoons, comic books, all that kind of stuff. It's garbage, right? It's just you're losing brain cells sitting in front of the idiot box, or it's like I learned a whole lot of stuff, and so when I got into stuff like learning more about history and stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading about this stuff in X-Men.
Yes. What radicalized you, Mr. Rogers, X-Men?
Mr. Rogers, X-Men. Yeah.
No, I totally get it. Talking about gargoyles, so I've already talked about how this really influenced me in my interests in literature and myth and legend, and I do credit it with at least 50% of the reason I have 2 English degrees. The other thing gargoyles gave me, and I got some of this from X-Men as well, but this really hit home for me. Watching Gargoyles was this profound sense of justice, and that your family doesn't have to be the people that you share DNA with. It taught me about how to show mercy and forgiveness, even when it seems like those things could be impossible to give. And this idea about how revenge is never the right course of action. I got some of those in my upbringing. I was brought up in a Christian household, and I learned these things from the Bible and in my church upbringing, my church background. But it was seeing them in action in Gargoyles that really hammered that home for me. Without boring your listeners with a lot of extraneous detail, which I am always happy to provide. Yay, ADHD. But about the time I was watching Gargoyles, premiered, I was 9 years old when it premiered, and watching it, throughout its original run, which was, of course, I would have been 11 when it ended. As I was growing up, it became more and more apparent that my folks just did not know what to do with me. And it wasn't because I was acting out or getting into trouble or anything like that. But like I said, I grew up in a really culturally homogenous area, and I was a little nerd girl who was loud and tomboyish, and I didn't like to wear dresses, and I didn't want anything to do with anything pink or feminine or whatever. I wanted to read my comic books and watch my cartoons and draw and play baseball and ride my bike and run around in the dirt like a freaking peppermint patty, and because I have never checked any of the stereotypical girl boxes, I was not only an outcast or a misfit in my school. I was definitely the weird nerd girl. I was also the outcast and misfit in my family. So my dad was working a particularly stressful job at the time, and like a lot of men do, at least during that time, he kind of checked out emotionally. Like, he was present, and my dad's a good man, and we were always provided for and things like that. But I, couldn't have like a good conversation with him. My mom had this idea of who she wanted me to be, and I was not fitting that ideal, and my mom didn't really know what to do with that. And so while she never disapproved of anything I was interested in, I could also tell that she didn't get it. And because she didn't get it, oftentimes it was kind of brushed aside as, well, that's not important, or that is, or worse, it was wrong because she didn't get it. And so basically what that told me is that if I had problems, I couldn't really talk to my folks. I had to figure those out on my own. And I learned how to process my emotions by watching the emotionally intelligent characters on Gargoyles. I learned that I might be angry about stuff, and I don't know what to do with that anger. Well, I watched Goliath, who is justifiably angry because he has witnessed genocide of his entire clan, his people. He is he believes himself, in this first 5 parts of the Awakening, he believes himself to be pretty much the only member of his clan left besides Hudson and the trio who were locked in the rookery because they had gotten into trouble. And so he's like, all my people are gone. My mate is gone. My partner is gone. And it's heartbreaking. And he is justifiably angry. And even when he is given the opportunity to choose revenge, even though I love that they show that it is not easy for him to choose saving Princess Catherine versus taking his revenge on Hakon. He even laments, I have been denied everything and even my revenge. But even then he lets him go. Like, the fact that even he chooses not to pursue vengeance blew my little 9-year-old mind. And it shaped me in such a way that, yes, I care about justice deeply, but there's a line between justice and revenge. And how do you wield that? What a incredibly powerful thing to be nuanced in a children's cartoon. And me at 9 years old getting that. I mean, not to toot my own horn, because that sounds like I was so smart and intelligent at age 9. But no, I was not. I was a silly 9-year-old kid. But that got in my head and in my heart. And it completely changed my perspective. And had I not had that safe space of Gargoyles and again, you get more of these kinds of intelligent storytelling motifs in seasons 2 and 3. More of this, what does justice look like? There's a lot of really great cop stories in here. It's not just all the police are always doing the right thing. It's like, why do you choose to serve as a police officer, Elisa? And she nuances that so well. What do you do when you find out there's a crooked cop in your midst? Like, how do you deal with that? I learned so much about justice and care for other people and forgiveness I would be a completely different person had I not had this safe space to process those emotions, where I felt like it was a safe space to process that, because I couldn't do it with my folks or anybody else really in my life. So, yeah, it almost brings me to tears to talk about it, because it meant that much to me to have that safe space. And so, which is why when I found Gargoyles again in repeats on Toon Disney when I was in high school, I was happy to go watch it again. And I was still like, I was enjoying it, but I was having a completely different experience watching the show in high school. When I collected the DVDs long before Disney Plus existed. And so I have the whole series on DVD. When it hit Disney Plus, even though I already had the DVDs, I told my husband, I was like, honey, we got to watch Gargoyles. So he'd watched like a few episodes with me. He'd watched maybe like the first 5 at one point on the DVDs, but had never gone back to it. I was like, honey, we have to watch the whole thing. And so we plowed through over the next like month and watched the whole series together. And he's like, that's so good. He's like, that was your favorite show as a kid? I was like, yeah, it fundamentally altered my entire life in the best way possible. I was like, yeah, this is good storytelling. And I've had the privilege of interviewing, relatedly, the brothers who created Star Trek Prodigy, Kevin and Dan Hageman. And I asked them the question in my interview. I said, you guys have done so well with Star Trek Prodigy, making it an intelligent story, a story that is accessible to kids, but still, like, this isn't like, a dumb kids show that adults have to watch with their kids. This is a smart and clever and fun storytelling. As somebody who was deeply marked by intelligent children's programming growing up, how do you do it? And they said, and I think Greg Weisman would say the same thing, is we talk to kids like they're humans. We don't talk down to them. We punch up, we lift up. And I think that is the essence of what happens in Gargoyles. And so, yeah, like you've only gotten a taste, brother. Like I really hope you go and revisit. I hope you go through the entire series. I think it's well worth your time.
Yeah, I think, well, first off, I mean, thank you for sharing that. That was a beautiful story. Like hearing the emotion in your voice, just hearing you talk about that, like I almost got choked up listening to you. And yeah, I could relate to a lot of what you were saying, because I was also, this weird kid who didn't quite fit in anywhere. And so it was stuff like X-Men that made me think, like, it's okay if you're an outcast. It's okay if you're different from everybody else. That actually is it's something that makes you strong. So that's actually a good thing. Yeah. So that was something I learned from stuff like X-Men, and my parents were great, right? I'm not going to sit here and badmouth them or anything, but they definitely didn't understand the same types of things that I was interested in, that I was gravitating towards. And it was because of stuff like X-Men that I questioned things. Like I questioned religion very young. And for my mom, who always grew up in a place where you never question the things that your parents taught you, that was mind blowing for her, that somebody would question this stuff. As is like, wait, what do you mean you're wondering whether or not there's a God? Like, of course there is, right? We told you there is, and we were told. So it's like that. It was amazing hearing her talk like that, and just seeing like you never stopped to just ask why. It's like, for me, it's like that seemed like the most natural thing in the world, and it was because of this stuff. It was because of this stuff that I grew up consuming, and yeah, that thing that about don't talk down to kids. I think that's so important. And I think that's something that so many people miss when it comes to this. A while back on Japan on Film, I had a video game writer as a guest, and talking a little bit about writing video games and stuff. And she was talking about how there are all these sort of guidelines for writing games for kids. And so it was like she said, like, there's this one thing where she had like an alien character or something like that, and the clients were like no, you can't put that, because kids at this age, they don't even understand the concept of Earth as a planet. So they can't understand the concept of aliens. And I was thinking, I was like, okay, I'm just kind of like nodding along, but in my head I'm thinking, I'm like, That's such bullshit. I'm like, first off, how do you know what is going in the mind of a kid?
Right.
I mean, first, let's start off there. And second, like, I mean, I show this stuff to my kids now. Like, my kids are, they're 3 and 4 years old, so they understand a lot more than I think people give them credit for.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids are capable of understanding a lot more stuff than people give them credit for. And I see it with my students. Like, I've got students who are most of my students are on the adult side, but I do have ones that are as young as like 15, 16. They are very intelligent if you give them the chance and if you don't talk down to them. And so, like, I make a point to never talk down to them when I'm doing like movie classes or stuff like that. Like, I throw complex themes at them because I'm like, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to talk down to you. I'll help you, but I'm not going to talk down to you. Right. And I think that's so important because first off, it makes them feel like you are respecting them to begin with.
Yes, absolutely.
And second off, like, they're not going to learn unless you challenge them. Like, it's so important to challenge kids and to poke that intellectual curiosity. Like, I see it if you don't nurture that, because kids like to learn. That's one of the things that people don't, like, the kids love to learn, but they don't want to learn in a way that bores the shit out of them. They want to learn in a way that's interesting. And so you throw something at them, like, you throw Shakespeare at a kid. The kid's going to be like, I don't want to read this shit. But you throw Shakespeare in the form of, gargoyles fighting robots. Well, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But you have my attention.
Yeah. But also, too, like, you were mentioning something about you were talking about the genocide and all that, and Goliath dealing with all these things. And it it clued me into something that I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but I was thinking about the fact that Greg Weisman comes from a Jewish background. And I was wondering, like, are there Jewish themes in here that are working, like the Holocaust, or like the expelling the Jews from their ancestral homeland, or just, like, not even that, but even expelling Jews from Germany and Europe and all that kind of stuff. Like, I felt like and I was thinking back to the episode when they're forced to leave the castle behind, right? And it just and that kind of clued me into that too. And I'm wondering, I'm like, and just right now I was like trying to Google very quickly Jewish themes in Gargoyles TV show, and I didn't really see anything come up, but it seems that's something that seems like it might be in that show's DNA as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly lots of episodes about prejudice and racism is bad, and other ideas that that we see repeated in history. One need not mention the Holocaust, but it's there. If you have been on the receiving end of othering in some way, and there are a lot of ways you can do that. This is a series that really delves into that idea of what happens when we other people, because the gargoyles are constantly in hiding, and then when not a spoiler, but when the general populace of New York or Manhattan finds that out, that these are real, there is some serious, like, fear and paranoia about the gargoyles. And so you get into these deeper themes of prejudice and why prejudice is a bad idea. It's so intelligent. This is the hill I will stand and die on. This is the best original property Disney has ever produced, period. They will not top it. The only way they can top it is if they bring Greg Weisman back to do another series, Gargoyle series. Like, that's the only way that even stands a chance of being this good. Like, in my opinion, I don't think Disney has ever produced anything better. I'm not sure they ever will.
No, it is a very high bar, and I do want to revisit this again. I think I'm not going to watch it all the way through now, but I think this is something I want to to put in a drawer, and I want to wait until my kids are a little bit older and I want to show it to them, because I think I would get a better experience watching it through their eyes. Because I'm noticing that with Spider-Man 94, for example. Like I watched that a few years ago, and rewatched it, I should say, a few years ago, and didn't really do much for me. Rewatching it, I'm like, the flaws are really kind of coming through very strong now. But my son is really into Spider-Man now, so I put it on him and just watching it through his eyes, I'm able to get a lot more appreciation out of it. So I think Gargoyles especially, I think right now, because like I said, they're 3 and 4, so I think they're a little bit too young to really kind of sit down and absorb it. But if I wait until they're like maybe 6 and 7, I think they'd be in a better place to kind of experience it then. Or even maybe 5 and 6. So I want to kind of hold off on it until I can watch it with them and let them and kind of experience it through their eyes, because I think I'd get a lot more out of it that way, especially hearing about how much it affected you as a kid. Because watching it now, it's like I know all this stuff. I can appreciate this for how groundbreaking it was, and still is in a lot of ways. But it's not something that can appeal to me on that level anymore. But if I'm watching it with my kids, I think I can appreciate it a lot more.
And it's certainly a series where you're going to have a lot of good discussions with them afterwards. Where so tell me what you think about that episode. Like what's interesting to you in that? I think you're going to have a lot of cool conversations with them. Once they're a little older and able to, fully take in what they're witnessing.
Right, and but also coming at it from the perspective of my kids being multiracial now, right? And living in a country where they are going to be a minority population, which is very different from the experiences I had growing up too. I think this would also give them a very useful perspective to have as they start going into school, and they're going to encounter that kind of stuff. So having these kind of tools early on to equip them, I think is going to be very helpful for them.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me, Perry. I didn't even think about that. That's a really cool point.
But anyway, we've been kind of waxing on a lot here but is there any final things you wanted to mention about Gargoyles before we close up?
Oh gosh,
I think you already said that whole speech you gave about the whole story you gave is just so moving. I'm not sure how you could top that actually at this point.
I think to me that, like I said, I would not be the person I am today. And it's interesting, Perry, that we watched all the same things growing up. I am still a Christian. You are not. But those ideals that that I see in Scripture, like Jesus caring for about justice, that everybody's treated justly, and that he offers forgiveness to people who do not deserve it. Those ideals that I see in Scripture, I see so clearly in Gargoyles. But that was what really sealed the deal for me, is watching that growing up, and showing that what does that tangibly look like, and just. One of the things that I do in my work on Mission Log Genealogy, which again is all about Gene Roddenberry's pre-Star Trek TV writing, we're looking at his early work to see, do the morals, meanings, and messages that eventually make their way into Star Trek, do they show up in his early work? And oftentimes they do, and there's these same ideas of what is justice, racism is bad, prejudice is bad. And people, nobody likes to be preached at. But at the same time, we love a story with a moral meaning message, don't we? And getting that kind of story and it makes it more accessible. It helps you to understand, here is a tangible example of why it's important to care about justice and to make sure that everybody is treated justly. Why is it important to, family isn't just the people you share DNA with. Like, your family is the people in your circle that you care for and care for you. You know, and that there's room for everyone in your clan. And that's like that's a big theme that you see in Gargoyles. So anyway, I think you know, if you've never watched it, give it a shot. At least this first season, you're going to get like kind of the groundwork for what's going to come later. Season 2 really hits it out of the park. There's some stuff with season 3 that I won't get into, but you know, Greg Weisman was not involved after the first episode of season 3, and so a lot of fans don't consider those episodes "quote unquote" canon. And Greg has different ideas of where he would have taken the series after that. I don't dislike those episodes. In fact, I like them a lot better as an adult than I remember liking them as a kid. But I think this is a series that is absolutely worth your time if you've got littles in your life, whether they're your kids or your nieces and nephews or your friends' kids. Set them down. This is good bonding time, and I think you're going to be entertained as an adult. I think you're going to enjoy it as a kid too. So.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. And so I'm curious about because is Weisman doing the Dynamite series?
Yes, he is doing the Dynamite series. So, in the late 2000s, he published the Slave Labor Graphics series, and that was his initial stat. Basically, that picks up after the first episode of season 3 of Gargoyles. This new series that he's writing with IDW Dynamite, does the same thing. But he's telling a different story than the one he told with the Slave Labor Graphics. I'm like, ooh, this is different. Okay, you got different ideas now. Which one is canon, quote unquote canon?
Okay,
you know,
So
it's kind of like choose your own adventure with the series finale.
So that was my question then. Like, did he pick up after the stuff that he didn't write in the animated series, or did he pick up from where he left off? So that's interesting.
From where he left off.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. Okay. Yeah, definitely check it out. Give it a watch. Like I said, it didn't speak to me as much on this first watch through as obviously it spoke to you, but I could definitely I could definitely appreciate it for what it was doing at the time. And, and it's something that I do want to revisit with my kids, and I think I'll get more out of it that way. But yeah, if you've never watched it and you are someone like me who is, kind of curious about it, first off, manage your expectations, because after something's been talked up so much, it's never going to meet those expectations. But it is really solid. So try and go into it with an open mind, and yeah, if you can put yourself back in that mindset, I think you'll definitely see why it was so groundbreaking and why it spoke so much to people like yourself. But yeah, and I think it's a good message to. It's a good argument for why kids need media that is going to talk up to them as opposed to talking down to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm never going to fuss at a kid for screen time as long as they're watching something good,
Yeah, exactly. Like that's one of the things too. Like, you hear all this stuff about. I just want to get on a little bit of a rant here, because you hear all this stuff about screen time.
Would you like the soapbox? I'm done with it.
Yes, I will happily step on the soapbox. Thank you. But it is I get so annoyed when I hear about people whining about screen time, and I'm just like, but I heard the same stuff when I was a kid too, with like video games and TV shows, and I'm just like, I feel like people are always looking for a moral panic about this kind of stuff, and I feel like as long as kids are being exposed to something that is talking up to them, I think that's valuable. No matter how they experience it, whether they experience it in, the form of a YouTube video, or they experience it in the form of an old Shakespeare play, which, also, remember, Shakespeare was considered garbage when it was published too. So.
Oh yeah.
So let's keep things in perspective.
Right. It was lowbrow art back then.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah. All right. Ashley, thanks so much. This is a great conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing your personal experiences with this show. But why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Sure. Lots of different ways to connect with me. If you want to hit me up on social media, I am on Facebook, Mastodon, and Blue Sky at The Nerdy Blogger. You can read my words on my blog, nerdyblogging.wordpress.com. You can read my words on fangirlish.com, where I write about film and television, mostly Star Trek. You can hear me on a few different podcasts. You can hear me on Podcast 616. That's podcast-616, talking all things Marvel. You can hear me on We Are Starfleet, talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds and other Star Trek related stuff. Both of those shows are on the Film Stories podcast network. You can also hear me on Mission Log Genealogy, which is all about Gene Roddenberry's pre-Star Trek TV writing, looking at his earliest works. And we're covering stuff that is considered dead media. It's not available anywhere. We're lucky if we have scripts or are able to find some episodes on the gray market. So if you're interested in TV history at all, it's definitely worth checking out. Or if you're interested in Star Trek or Gene Roddenberry, worth checking out too.
Okay, great. We'll have, I'm sorry.
One more. Sorry. You can also check me out on the Video Store podcast. That's Video Store Podcast, where myself and two other rotating hosts, we, in a round robin fashion, offer movie recommendations based around like a theme or a topic or director, actor, etc., in the style like what you would receive at a video store. And you can check us out at videostorepodcast.com. Okay. Now I'm done.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
We'll have
I'm
links
a busy
to that.
lady.
Yeah, very busy. Yeah. My mind's swimming from all that stuff. But we'll have links to some of that stuff in the show notes, so please check those things out. And as for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website. We are superherocinephiles.com on Blue Sky, Super Cinema Pod on Instagram and Threads, although Blue Sky is where I mostly hang out these days anyway. And that does it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.